Vinland Saga, one of the best written anime of modern age, with great storytelling and visuals, it's a tale of revenge, hatred, war, idealism, and pacifism. Known for its main protagonist Thorfinn, for his great character development, going from a person who was a slave of revenge to becoming a true warrior. Vinland Saga gained significant popularity for its iconic line, "I have no enemies." This one line changed the lives of millions of people as it started a new trend in meme culture. Instead of going on a villain arc and seeking never-ending revenge, which will leave your heart empty and turn you into a shallow soul, why not one must learn to forgive, understand others, and aspire to be a better person? As that's what Thorfinn taught me, and why in the first place this meme skyrocketed. To understand what makes Thorfinn character development so special, we will have to first understand his backstory, so spoiler warning as we go into the details. In his early days of the childhood, Thorfinn grew up in the freezing cold conditions in a small village in Iceland, living peacefully with his father, Thor, a pacifist and a former warrior, and one of the strongest fighter of his era, who got tired of the never-ending violence, and decided to fake his death in order to settle down in a small village in Iceland with his family. As Thor realized what it meant to be a true warrior, which definitely wasn't chopping the head of the enemy in a battle. At a very young age, Thorfinn aspired to be like his father, a strong, ambitious, and a true warrior, like it was his father's blood running inside him after all. It was an era in which for Norsemen it was an honor to take part in battles, young children playing with wooden swords and shields acting like warriors, mothers happily sending their sons to war, thinking it as if it's an honor. But even after escaping the cruelty of war, there was a guy who was still jealous of the strength of Thor's, as he deserted from the battle, which is strictly prohibited for Norse warriors, and is a death offense. As Thor was literally a child, his existence was a threat to Floki, so he hired Askallads, a leader of a Viking band, to kill the deserted warrior Thors. Askallads planned a trap for Thors as he departed with the villagers, only for Askallads' Viking band to ambush them. Thors beats every last one of the Askallads' men without killing them, and challenges Askallad to one-on-one duel. Even though Thors won the duel between him and Askallad, he still chose to spare the life of Askallad as he didn't want to kill him. But one of Askalad's men take Thorfinn hostage, as Askallad didn't care about the duel in the first place and was after the head of Thors, and he knew that, so he chose to surrender himself in order to save the life of his son and the villagers. Seeing his father die in front of his own eyes caused Thorfinn to develop a deep hatred and a never-ending desire for revenge against his father's killer Askallad, as he swore he won't live in peace as long as he doesn't get revenge for his father. As Thorfinn chose to dedicate 11 years of his life by joining Askalad's Viking band to get revenge for his father, as even though he could have easily killed Askallad in his sleep, but as a son of Thor's, he would never kill him so cowardly, and challenges Askallad to one-on-one duel, which as a child he probably lost, but that didn't stop him as he went on to duel Askallad again and again and again, even after losing countless times. Thorfinn got obsessed with his revenge and was consumed by his hatred toward Askallad, but smart enough, Askallad took advantage of Thorfinn's desire for revenge for his own benefit, and manipulated him however he desired. Thorfinn went on to kill countless enemy soldiers, helped Askallad in raiding countless villages, so in return as a reward he can get a duel with Askallad. Seeing his father die at such a young age, plus the trauma that came with it, turned Thorfinn into a cold and a distant person, and honestly it's pretty sad to see such a young kid go from happily living his normal life to becoming a cold-blooded person, fully consumed by vengeance, as the only emotion that was driving Thorfinn was to get revenge against Askallad, to honor his father's soul. But in pursuit of his vengeance, he became a slave to it, and forgot about being a human or the people that mattered to him. But even after fighting 10 years alongside Askallad, he still couldn't beat him, as Thorfinn was only driven by his rage. On the other hand, Askallad was a calm and a calculated guy, who always knew what he was doing. Every time he would say something to Thorfinn that will get him enraged during a duel, and that was the moment he would lose, as all his skills would disappear when he was angered. But after losing his last duel against Askallad, he got a reality check, as Askallad gives him a simple statement: "I should thank Thor for bringing you to me. All I have to do is put on the act and do these duels with you, and you will go fighting people like Thorkill." As Thorfinn was basically nothing more than a puppet for Askallad to manipulate from the start, however he wanted, as Thorfinn had become a slave to vengeance and hatred, and had forsaken all the values that his father taught him. And that was what Askallad wanted to remind him of, that even after spending a decade he still couldn't beat him. And the cause of this was a combination of Thorfinn becoming dependent on Askallad for his own purpose in life, as well as Thorfinn being so blinded by hate and rage that he could never fight properly when dueling Askallad. And the saddest part of all of this is that nothing Thorfinn does will ever bring his father back, and it just goes to show that moving on and fighting peace should always take precedence over vengeance, as he knew that he would eventually die of old age one day, and wanted him to move on already and have a better future, as his relationship with Thorfinn was that of a father and a son, and respectively as well of enemies. Even though oftentimes Askallad would manipulate Thorfinn, but others time he would also seem to give him wisdom and offer him advice over the time to guide him towards the correct path and to stop being a slave of vengeance and break the chain. Even after giving his life for the sake of Prince Canute and his homeland, his last words to Thorfinn were, "Be a true warrior, son of Thors. Go far ahead, go beyond the world Thors went, as this is your true fight." As Askallad wanted Thorfinn to move on and to not hold on to it for his entire life, he is the son of Thors and should venture beyond the world he saw. Askallad asked him, "How do you plan to live your life after I die?" And he had no answer, as he spent majority of his life fully obsessed with getting revenge, and he just lost that purpose. And now that all that hatred and vengeance were gone, all that was left was complete utter void of emptiness. The slave arc. Thorfinn was enslaved as a punishment after he attacked Prince Canute in a moment of shock and rage for killing Askallad, and was sold to Kettil, a wealthy farmer in Denmark. At this point, Thorfinn had lost all the meaning of living his life. After the death of Askallad, Thorfinn turned into a shallow soul and went to a emotionless phase. He was introduced to a fellow slave Einar, who is captured as a slave after his village is raided by English army. Kettil introduces Einar to Thorfinn and tells them to be friends as they will be working together from now on his farm. Kettle offers a deal to Einar and Thorfinn that in order to gain their freedom, they will have to work on his farm, cut down all the trees, grow a wheat farm, and sell it to Kettle in order to buy themselves back. At this point, Thorfinn was completely numb, a person without purpose, just an empty soul, questioning his existence. What's the purpose of living? What good comes from being alive? It's like he doesn't want to live anymore, but his body does, as he will see constant nightmares of his past, one after another, as deep down he knew what he did was wrong. Thorfinn tells Einar about his past as a warrior, and that he has killed so many people that he doesn't even remembers, which makes Einar quite enraged, and he even tries to choke him, as Thorfinn represents everything that he hates and is the proxy for the people that took his happiness away from him, but isn't someone who actually killed his family. So he stops. But as time passes, Thorfinn and Einar become good close friends, and it was thanks to Einar that Thorfinn finally got his senses back and had a will to live now, as all the emptiness inside of his heart was fading away slowly, and he finally started to find happiness. Thorfinn and Einar work hard on their farm over the time so they can earn their freedom, while Thorfinn continues to have nightmares almost every night. But when he wakes up, he doesn't remember what he dreamed about, a fact that always bothers him. It's like a fish stuck in his throat, even though he wishes to forget it, but still he can't, as it's hard to leave behind what you are most of your life. But the problem is that there is no head inside his heart anymore, and without his head he's just empty, as all that time he survived on his hatred all alone, and now he's just a man without a purpose. As there is a great quote by Thomas Carlyle, a man without a purpose is like a ship without a rudder, because if there is no purpose, then all that there is for Thorfinn is just pure emptiness. But sometimes it's better to be empty if you want to be reborn and truly change. As an empty man, you have the room to fit anything inside you, and you start to find happiness. And that's what Thor's meant to Thorfinn from the start. But to understand what Thor's meant, Thorfinn had to go through that same path of violence, to understand that he himself is only worst enemy. But that was also because of his emptiness that he was able to grow and escape the never-ending violence and become a free man, as not many people can leave behind the burden of people they killed on their shoulders and move on, as Thorfinn was able to leave behind the path of violence behind and find true peace without the means of taking one's life. As this is what Thor meant when he said a true warrior doesn't need a sword. A true warrior has the courage to resolve a conflict without the mean of violence, to reject war while being surrounded by it, to protect what's important to him, and to run instead of kill. As Thorfinn finally learned that he has indeed no enemies. Thorfinn is the example of yes, you can change. Yes, you can become a better person than you were yesterday. Yes, you can learn to forgive and move on, not because your enemy deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace.